Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We're excited you've joined us today for the session on corporate holiday card hacks. A few housekeeping details before we get started. This session is being recorded, and you should receive a link to the recording and a PDF of the slides tomorrow by email. Please feel free to share this webinar content with colleagues that could not attend today. A question and answer session will immediately follow the presentation. If you have a question for our speakers, please type it into the questions box in your GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen. This webinar is being hosted and sponsored by Suttle-Straus. Suttle-Straus was founded in 1910. Over 100 years, our company has built up the equipment and expertise to handle almost any print project. We offer creative design services, web, sheet-fed and digital printing, wide format printing, direct and transactional mail, a print-on-demand technology for distributed networks, along with kitting and fulfillment. For more information about our services, please visit us on the web at Suttle-Straus.com. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Christine Edgren is the graphic design team leader at Suttle-Straus with over 13 years of design experience, 11 of those here with Suttle-Straus. Her background includes agency and in-house environments. Her passion for typography, design, and unique papers led her to also teach aspiring designers at Madison College. Amy Olson has been a graphic designer at Suttle-Straus since 2014. Creating beautiful designs is truly a passion of hers. Amy loves great typography, interesting layouts, hand lettering, and illustration. Christine and Amy, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can take it away.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Megan. Good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you joining us. I will let Amy start us off.
All right, there are a few key factors that you want to keep in mind when you're planning your holiday card. Today we're going to cover messaging, timing, budget, and consulting with your print vendor. Then we're going to wrap up with some examples and explain how these factors influenced that year's holiday card.
First, let's start with messaging. This covers a lot of key points. Determining a lot of these up front will help with your overall design and how it comes together. First, we'll start with the purpose of your card. Will there be a holiday greeting? And if so, for which holiday? Do you want the message to include a thank you for doing business, or is it simply a way to keep top of mind? Establish who you are targeting. Is it customers, prospects, both? Is it to internal employees? This will help with what your message will say and what data list to use. For example, if you already have a data list and you know some demographics about the people you're going to send your card to, you could include variable in your holiday card. But even if you don't use variable, knowing who's on your list might help sway your message. Also, if you don't have an existing list, your print provider might be able to source one for you. You also want to consider longevity for your holiday card. Are you just sending a message that lasts for the season, or do you want to stay top of mind all year with something like a calendar? We're also going to show you an example later of a coaster that we created that has the potential to hang around on someone's desk forever. Will there be a call to action on your card? You could include a link to a landing page on your website, which on your landing page could have a video or have the recipient fill out a form. There could also be a phone number or an email for them to contact a sales rep. You may see call to actions go to social media pages as well. For social media, there needs to be a reason to send them to your page. It's not just to see your everyday posts. The content should tie to your holiday card. For example, an updated profile picture, cover photo could really help reinforce your messaging. Show value for their time with an incentive. For example, we will show this in later slides.
Email is another great touch point for after you've sent your holiday card to encourage people to complete whatever your call to action was. And that might be to drive them to your social media pages or to your website. If you do drive people to your website, we have an example of things you might include on that page. This specific holiday card is a great example of how to tie digital components to your print piece. We're going to get into the specifics later on this example about how it was printed, but for now, let's talk digital.
Each year, we like to say thank you to our customers and offer to donate to charity with a gift in their name. To donate, we direct them to a landing page to fill out a form, which then takes them to a thank you page. And then from there, for this year, they were able to download images that match the holiday card that they could use for their computer desktop or their phone backgrounds. Then as another component, we asked our own employees what they were thankful for, and then we compiled all of these responses into multiple videos that we hosted online and then posted on our Facebook page.
Speaking to the video that was posted on Facebook, the video reached 14,000 people with interactions of 77, which included comments, likes, and shares. The consistency within messaging and design really helped bring this campaign together. To see the landing page and download the wallpaper images that Amy spoke to, there will be a link in the chat window as well as in the final download slides.
Yeah, I just want to add that I don't think calls to actions are a lot of companies don't think about that for a holiday card. It's really just sending a card that says, thanks for your business, see you next year. But your holiday card can be doing a lot more. You can use it to generate social followers. You can use it to get customer feedback if you like. So there are a lot of different ways that your holiday card can do more than just say a blanket generic statement. So
good point. The most common issue that arises when it comes to holiday cards is the timing. So it's not recommended to maybe hand off your files December 1st for a card that you want in mailboxes by Christmas. It's not enough time to turn around a job. So let's talk about when you should hand off those files as well as understanding the production timeline. Timing really works when you first know when you want your card in mailboxes. Then we suggest working backwards from the mail date to determine that overall timeline.
So on this slide, you can see an example of a timeline, but we don't want you to take that as gospel. It is really just meant to give you a simplified look at how some elements of a job, like how long those can take, and Christine's going to explain that.
So for our example, we're using an iron cross-fold holiday card, and it's mailing first class with a quantity of 1,000 that are printed digitally. You can count on about 5 days to mail, about 10 days for production, and maybe 5 days to make edits to approve. Design can take as long as you need, but make sure you're meeting with your print vendor early so that you can flush out your design because the form could change. Later, we'll discuss why this meeting is so important with your print vendor.
So if you're thinking of a Christmas card, you're already behind.
Sorry.
That's what we're saying. Maybe you can think of a New Year's card or even a Valentine's Day card, but you want to start thinking about your Christmas cards back in September, maybe even August. The more time, the better, right?
Mm-hmm. That is true. And then some other things you're going to want to consider when it comes to timing. We've already touched on production. So on average, you should estimate 10 days for a quote-unquote simple job. And then proofing can take 2 days or it can take 2 weeks. That really depends on your turnaround time. You also need to consider that some printers can't execute everything you want on your holiday card in-house. So you might have to plan for some outsourcing time as well. You also need to be aware of paper availability. And die cuts also add time, and I'm not talking about the physical die cutting, which can add 4 days, but also if you need to order a new die, that can take a week or so. Another huge time consideration is the folding of your card. You should always check if your piece can be machine folded, if that's how you're planning on sending it, or does it need to be hand folded. For example, that comes into mind is an iron cross fold. We think of this as a common fold, and even us here at Suttle-Straus, sometimes we think that folds like that can be done by machine, when in fact they are done by hand. So you always should double check how is your piece going to fold. And then finally, here's a time saving tip. If you're printing your card digitally and you happen to have your mail list ahead of time, you can print your mail panel variably during the printing process. If you don't have that ahead of time, that's okay. It just means that your final folded piece will either need to go through an inkjet machine or have a label added to it, and that just adds time and cost. These are just a few things that you need to keep in mind. There are a ton of other things that can pop up on any given job that can affect the timeline.
So now we're going to talk about budget. Once you have your messaging figured out, this is when you can start thinking about the creative, and that's from concept through the completion of the files. There's a lot of time to create what form a holiday card can take. Aside from the printed materials, there's also the digital components that would follow. Paper. Okay, so there are thousands of paper options. Know your options. If you're not sure where to start, there are lots of resources, like signing up for paper mill marketing. Right now, SAPI has a great POP campaign, or you could get on the mailing list for Cougar Blue Line magazine. Those are great resources to find out more about paper. Another resource is asking your print house to see if they have a paper room you can look through. I will warn you, if you're anything like me, you can be stuck in there for hours. You or your printer could request paper samples for you to create a mock-up. You could attend a paper show. Although that's a little harder to find these days, there are a lot of great resources out there. Be flexible about what paper you want to use too. Come prepared with the stock in mind. For example, you really want to use a Neenah, Stardream, pearlized paper. There's a possibility that there are minimum quantities or it might be out of stock. Be ready for a plan B and let your print vendor help you figure out what that could be. There are hundreds of pearlized stocks, so coming in with one in mind is helpful to get that conversation started.
All right, then your budget for print includes your basic print options, whether you want to go digital or offset, and then any additional coatings or special effects you want to add. And then production includes your die cuts, your laser cutting, hand assembly, that can include both folding or inserting. And you also need to consider if your piece needs to bind and how you're going to do that. I would like to remind you again about print and production, that not all print vendors can do everything in-house. For example, laser cutting is very popular right now, but is not a common technique that print shops can do because it requires a specific kind of cutting machine. And that might mean that your piece has to ship across the country and back, which can affect your budget. Then there are your postage considerations, and that includes whether or not your piece is machinable, how you're going to mail it. Is it first class? Does it have a stamp on it? Can you print it in Daisha? Your quantities are going to alter your postage costs. Also, the USPS might have promotional discounts in 2019. That can include heat-activated inks or metallic inks that you can find on the USPS website. Another great way to cut down on your budget is to actually do away with postage and consider hand delivering your holiday card.
A quick low budget tip, or a couple actually shown at the bottom here, is talking to your printer about maybe what house paper options they have, if they have any existing dies that you can use. Keep in mind designing your piece using a standard mail size, and if you incorporate a fold, try to incorporate one that would be machinable.
When you say house paper options, you mean stocks that we always have in stock here.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and that just saves you money because you're not having them shipped from a mill or anything like that. We already have them, and we can save you dollars that way.
And time. So consulting with your printer early can help prevent any hiccups along the way. Bring a full-size mock-up of your card on the paper if possible. If you don't have a physical mock-up, no problem. I would suggest plan extra time to work with your print vendor on developing one. This will help iron out any kinks there might be. There doesn't have to be a design ready on the piece, just the form that it might take. Like an example we have off to the side of this slide, we can tell that they want an accordion fold with pockets that include inserts and a belly band to wrap it. There's no design started since the form needs to be approved for production.
So our designer here met with our production team with a mock-up like this, and they actually recommended to increase the size of the tabs on these pockets because that would help our hand assembly. These are common adjustments that happen at this stage, and if you wait until you've already begun designing the actual graphics, you're probably going to have to go back and change that. And as a designer, that's something that we just really, really want to avoid.
Well, we might not have time to do it either.
Yeah.
And through those meetings, you can establish the right specs to help with creating an accurate estimate. They can also recommend sheet sizes, like maybe if you reduce your piece by 1/2 inch, you can get 2 up on a sheet, saving cost and time. Consulting about mailing is really helpful. For example, you want to put glitter on your direct mail piece. You should really consider an envelope. Speaking with a mail consultant can help you understand how functional the mail panel needs to be, and the art considerations like the leading edge, the location of the mailing and return address, and so much more. Not all printers have in-house mailing consultants, so if that's the case, you can always contact USPS directly. We also have a lot of mailing blogs on our website if you want to learn more about mailing timelines or suggestions on design considerations.
Yeah, luckily we do have an expert in-house here, Rob Hanks, so all of his blogs are on our website.
Yeah, and he actually just saved a customer a lot of money on a job because they had the designer put the mail panel a specific direction, and he told them if they were willing to alter that and flip the mail panel, it then became machinable and saved them thousands of dollars. So
yeah, USPS has specific restrictions on pieces that can be processed by machine or those that can be processed by hand. So by making it machinable, that's the best way to go, right?
Yeah, if you're
To save.
Yeah. All right, now let's put everything we just talked about into perspective and look at some of examples of Suttle-Straus's holiday cards. Some of you might even recognize these if they showed up in your own mailboxes. Also note that we have provided budget categories. They range from low to high, and these are based on how each card compared to the other ones in this specific list. You might think that our low budget card is high compared to something you've done in the past, but we just want to give you a reference point. I'd also like to note, if you look at this slide, we've included a page just like this for every example that we're going to give you today. It kind of gives you some more specific details about exact paper stocks and how they were printed, where we might not cover that when we go over the examples. You're also welcome to reach out to us if you have any questions about these pieces. Or if one really speaks to you and you would like to see it in person, we'd be happy to send you one if we happen to have any left lying around. Just reach out to us.
So we're going to start with this Giving Thanks card. For our messaging on this first one and a few to follow, we wanted to be first in the mailboxes before the flood of holiday cards came in. So our target in-home date was before Thanksgiving. We wanted to thank current customers for their business and found a lot of clients were unable to receive gifts. So we produced a card with a pearl, which is a personalized URL, to a landing page where they could select a charity from 3 choices for a donation made in their name. We wanted to showcase our print capabilities as well through the fall theme and interactive fold. The budget is set at medium high as it included an iron cross fold, die cut, and some hand assembly. Both the envelope and card were featured on Neenah Classic column stock, with the card printing conventional with UV inks and the tip-on printing digital to incorporate the variable pearl component, which is shown here. To incorporate the matched mailing, there's actually a match number hidden under the tab that holds the tip-on.
All right, next is our Seasons of Giving card. As Christine mentioned on that last card, we started this donating to charity in our customer's name, and that was so well received by our customers that we've actually continued this tradition every year, and we are even doing it on our present holiday card.
And more companies are coming out with these kind of policies where you aren't allowed to accept gifts from vendors, especially in regulated industries like healthcare. So doing a charitable donation is a great way to go.
Okay, so this concept was really focused around thanking our customers for the whole year, and therefore the design revolves around the seasons, and each panel reveals a new season. The orange envelope that we chose that you can see in this slide really drove the whole design and the color scheme, which resulted in us using 6 spot colors instead of your traditional CMYK. As you can see, this piece used a unique die, and then in order to show all 4 seasons and then the messaging that went along with each of those, there are 7 panels in total, and that makes this an extreme roll fold, and it was hand folded. So you can see the artwork as you reveal each panel. We start with fall, and then we go to winter. Then you see a little bit of spring here, and I'd also like to note how vibrant this color is. That's a result of using the spot color. We were really able to hone in on what colors we wanted to show. And then you can see spring and a little more messaging here. And then finally, our donation element is this card that we printed digitally, and it used variable data and directed people to a personalized URL. You can see that it says, this is our sample one, but it says the person's name and then ssgiving.com. We also incorporated a QR code this year, and each of those was unique and directed them right to their Pearl.
And I know QR codes are a little, maybe have been considered passé. This card's from a few years ago, but now that smartphones have put QR code capabilities right into their cameras, it may be something that starts working better than if you might have tried this in years past when you had to download an app for scanning these things. You no longer have to have a separate app for them.
Well, and when we did this card, we got specific comments from people about using a QR code
for the first time.
So we had a lot of fun with this next one, playing off of childhood memories of hand turkeys. You know what I'm talking about. It definitely inspired the design, which came from the charities we selected that supported children and families. We mailed the card in a similar clear square envelope and printed it digitally using variable on the mail panel to show through, so no label was needed. You can see from this slide we added a spot gloss coating, which I think people are surprised that you're able to achieve this using a digital press.
Yeah, so just because you're running digital doesn't mean you can't have any specialty elements to it, and that's where you can really rely on your printer or your designer to explain that to you, that we have those capabilities.
As the card unfolded, you can see we created a modified iron cross fold, but this time die cutting the panels to fit to the turkey theme, creating feathers. As the panels unfold, the messaging is revealed and the fun turkey head pops up. Once it's opened entirely, the message was variable on the inside, providing the recipient with a link and Pearl, as well as the QR code similar to the last example. Our next Giving Thanks card focused our messaging on family traditions. We produced this card conventionally with UV inks on an absorbent Nina Blotter 17-point stock, while the envelope was on a craft stock. We played on the colors of the Thanksgiving holiday. Each pull tab was designed and engineered to reveal new messaging as well as nostalgic family photos, making the piece interactive. We felt this design really lent itself to providing an emotional connection through the images. The pictures are also actually one of our sales rep spouse's family. We felt the images really could relate to a lot of our recipients. And through the reveals, we could add that messaging on the tabs in order to thank the customer. The final reveal inside, the Polaroid area, was the digitally printed tip-on, which is actually underneath that, and it revealed the variable Pearl and QR code to select their charity.
Yeah, and I just think this highlights a great example of messaging and using an emotional connection to connect your business with your customers. People buy from people, and so this is a great way to connect person to person rather than business to customer. And so you'll see a lot of these themes, we try to make an emotional connection, whether it's family holiday photos or turkey hands drawn by your kids, relating to something that has a bit of emotion behind it can get you a stronger response than a generic card with a trite message.
This campaign also featured a nostalgic video on the landing page, and that helped carry the theme through from the print to the digital. The matching graphics also related to the follow-up emails to non-responders, as well as on the social media pages.
All right, next we have a snowflake ornament. The design for this piece was inspired by, you know, when you fold a piece of paper the right way and then you cut it, and when you pull it apart, you get a snowflake. That's how we started with this, and then it morphed into a dimensional piece. This card was really fun for recipients because it was interactive. It arrived in a flat envelope, and that included a card with instructions and then perforated snowflake pieces that were then popped out and assembled. And then to top that off, we included a silver cord for them to hang it. This piece is a great example of why you need to not only budget your dollars, but budget your creative time. There was a lot of engineering that needed to go into the snowflake assembly. So there was a lot of time creating mock-ups and then testing the functionality. I can guarantee you this did not happen the first time we tried to put it together.
No.
And then something to note, we haven't talked too much about budget on these examples yet, but I'd like to point out that this card falls in the low to medium budget for two reasons. One, we were able to save a lot of money because this piece is fun and interactive, but all of the hand assembly is actually done by the recipient. We didn't have to spend any time hand assembling it, we just had to insert it. And so because we saved so much time and money in hand assembly, we were then able to use some of our budget to pick a really specialty house paper, or sorry, not house paper, a specialty paper stock. And that was actually an expensive two-shade paper. So we saved some money on hand assembly and then put that back in towards a really tactile snowflake experience. And as you can see, the final result was a beautiful keepsake that people built themselves and then could hang on to for seasons to come.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out with this card, especially if your company wants to avoid religious messaging because you don't want to wade into the Christmas versus Hanukkah versus Kwanzaa. I mean, choosing a winter theme around snow is a kind of a way to avoid that. Although this is an ornament, it's snow themed, and so it's a great kind of way to put out a holiday message without getting specific.
And I mean, if you fell behind on your timeline, this snowflake could go out all the way up until, if you live in Wisconsin, March or April.
Yeah, there you go.
Our next example we're going to show you was also interactive. It was build your own snowman, and it focused on sustainability. This was a year that everyone was talking about FSC paper, so we wanted to highlight that our company is FSC certified, and Christine's going to explain what FSC means.
And I'll just touch on it a little bit. For those unsure of what FSC stands for, it is Forest Stewardship Council, which means your paper is made from FSC certified forest or post-consumer waste. It requires a lot for a printer to be certified. There's a lot of processes. Employees need to be aware of the right steps to take. If you're interested in knowing more, there are a lot of details on our website.
All right, now for the design of this piece, we were inspired by the paper ring garland that you might have made as a child when you were counting down the days till Christmas. So that resulted in this cute little ringed snowman that the customer built. And I'd like to point out that this piece used 0 dies. It was instead cut with just straight cuts, And then we instructed people to cut along dotted lines that were printed on there and then follow our machine scores to create the hat. And then the strips were just machine cut, no dies. And then to really further our message of sustainability, we included this list that you can see on this slide here about sustainable gifts that you could give out all year long.
So if your company wants to promote an environmentally friendly message using the FSC and sustainable practices, this is one way to highlight that.
And then this final slide for this piece really highlights the paper that we chose with the message of sustainability. You think about the forest and all of that, and you can see that with the wood texture here, just really emphasize that. And then we also had a lot of customers send in photos of their snowflake after they made it. That really makes this a great example of how you can get some longevity out of your holiday card when you think outside of the box. People are going to want to hang on to something like this.
And when somebody takes ownership in creating something, they're more likely to keep it around and less likely to toss it in the recycling bin.
Right, and share it with people.
Yeah.
Which was cool to see.
Hey, look at this, what I got in the mail.
Yeah. So for this gratitude poster, so we talked about how maybe a card doesn't need to take a card shape per se. We went more in the direction of a poster, which was inspired by an old vintage hand-drawn holiday posters, if you remember. And it was much simpler from the standpoint of production, but made a big impact in the mail. Sending a card in a tube will definitely pop out to your recipient. For branding consistency, we matched the art from the poster to the label shown on the outside of the tube. A quick note, the gift of giving a donation in someone's name really resonated with our clients, and we felt honored that they were able to share what it meant to them on our Facebook page. For example, the quote shown here on this slide.
I'd also like to circle back to when she said a tube. I mean, when have you ever received a tube in the mail? You're going to open that. It doesn't matter who you are, you get a tube in the mail, you're going to open it. So if you think, there's other ways to think outside the box, right. Not just what your card looks like, but how it arrives.
You can pretty much count on 100% open rate. You're not going to get on your holiday email.
Right. Yes. It was fun, hand lettering, as well as hand drawing the art on the poster, giving it that vintage feel with the design and the print. We heard a lot of people say that they still have it hanging in their offices today, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, because this was made years ago.
Right. And so as the poster printed conventional due to size, there was actually not a digital printed component like we've seen in earlier examples, which meant we didn't personalize the URL. So the concept featured a girl, which is a general URL, still offering the charities to choose from. You can see the thank you page following the girl directed recipients to Facebook to share what they are grateful for in order to receive an additional donation in their name. We matched the theme on Facebook with a similar design for the cohesive campaign.
And I think this is important to point out in any multi-channel campaign, just having a comprehensive look and feel across all your campaign elements. It's going to reinforce your message. It's going to make it more sticky. It's going to make it feel like a seamless experience from mail to web to email to social. So having this all planned out in advance, while it takes a little bit more graphic design time to make all the elements, it should make it perform that much better.
Mm-hmm. Our Together Snowflake card was designed to showcase the partnership that we have with our clients and how much we value that. The card included an expanded digital campaign as well. We've seen the comments from the clients in these past examples, but not only does our donation touch our customers, but it also is appreciated by the charity that we end up donating to.
So you can see a quote here that we got, just a thank you message from Ronald McDonald House about how our donations and your donations really, really matter during this time.
Mm-hmm. We produced this specific piece conventionally with 2 spot colors instead of the traditional 4-color process on a Cougar opaque stock. It was created with a very unique die cut. This expanding fold was a huge hit and definitely made a difference. It mailed in a white square envelope, and the card did require some time with hand assembly for folding and inserting. Also, it was featured and picked up by Cougar Blue Line magazine, which was a pretty cool article. And if you know Trish Wachowski of Super Cool Folds of the Week, it was also featured by her. I will say a few of the other examples we've talked about have also been picked up by her, but I wanted to note Trish Wachowski because of her website, foldfactory.com, which is a great resource for ideas on folding techniques and different types and how you can modify them.
Yeah, and these are tried and true folds. So, and she provides templates and everything that you can start there. If you need to modify, that's great, but it's always nice to have a starting point and know that it's going to function.
And the great thing about these folds is that it comes down back to the size of a normal envelope, right? So you can have this huge impact piece, but it all closes up nicely to fit in the standard size envelope, so you don't have to pay more.
Yeah, you just want to consider, again, like I talked about in the previous piece, this took some engineering to get it to fold exactly the way the designer wanted it to and unfold in a specific way. So a lot of R&D went into that. It also touched our production area. They had some concerns about how it was going to cut and how it would fold, and they made recommendations on where to adjust our die line so that it folded flat and smoothly. So we've kind of said that a holiday card doesn't always have to be a card. For this year, we were really focused on longevity and staying top of mind all year, so hence a calendar.
And I'll just mention that this didn't have to arrive before Thanksgiving or before Christmas, but we were shooting for right before the New Year, so slightly different than what you've seen in previous examples.
Yeah, I mean, we'll give you a little insight. We were a little behind the ball on this year, and we knew we couldn't get it out before Thanksgiving, so knowing that, we adjusted our message and what form it was going to take. So that happens, even to us. A lot of people don't have room on their desk for a big calendar, so we wanted to make sure that it didn't take up a lot of space, and also some people don't have room to hang a calendar, so we made the cover here turn into a standing easel, so really anyone could use it. I've seen it hanging and I've seen it standing. After we decided the size, the design kind of turned into showcasing all the different print capabilities that Suttle-Straus has to offer. Each month was printed on a different paper, and then they all included a variety of conventional printing, digital printing, specialty coatings, spot colors, metallic ink. No 2 months in this calendar were produced exactly the same. And because we included so many different techniques, we wanted to provide a detailed list of how each month was produced. You could find that list on the cover. We did that in hopes that someone might see a month and it really resonated with them, so they would reach out to their sales rep and say, hey, I want to produce a job the same way and technique that you produced this month. And then also an added element was that each month perfed at a different location, so that as the year went along, you started to create this waterfall that featured all the different techniques. And last but not least, we needed to bind this calendar together. Thickness was an issue that we had to overcome, and there was a lot of limitations on whether or not this could be done by machine. In the end, we actually settled on a clear rubber band that you can see here. It was not only a unique solution, but in the end, it actually turned out to be the simplest and probably the cheapest solution. I'd also like to note, though, that sourcing the perfect rubber band for this job was a little bit of a challenge. And in the end, we had to order a few more rubber bands than we actually needed because of minimum quantities that were available. So that's something that you might face when you're developing a unique holiday card. In the end, we thought it was worth the little extra to buy this specific rubber band because it really did complete the whole piece when it was done.
And I'll just mention, I know that the calendar, you know, in this example, a calendar in general meant for that year, but this actually, I've seen people still have it because it has those other applications. So people are still referencing it after that year is done because it does have the different papers with the different techniques, with the different print applications. So it's kind of like a nice resource just to have. And I know we do still have a couple if anybody is interested.
Yeah, if you think about any time you get a paper swatch book from someone, they try to highlight these techniques. That's kind of what this morphed into, just a little cheat sheet of all the stuff that we're capable of doing here at Suttle-Straus. So we hope people enjoyed it and held up to it.
And I'll just say a calendar is something that any company can do. Although we featured our printing techniques, if you have 12 employees you'd like to highlight, or 12 products or services, or 12 different, if you're a nonprofit, 12 different stories of people you've helped in the community, a calendar is a great way to do that and keep reminding people every month with a new message.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now for our last example. This one had so many components to it that it morphed into a holiday package instead of a holiday card. Our message started for this, we wanted to focus on warmth of the holidays. And you can physically feel warmth by enjoying a cup of cocoa, for example. So we included a cocoa packet, but you can also feel warmth emotionally, like when you share a cup of hot cocoa with a friend. So we actually included 2 packets. And then another focus for our message this year was to highlight our wide format department. And we wanted to give people a gift that they could hold on to indefinitely. This gift took a form of a coaster tied along with the hot cocoa idea. And then the coaster wasn't just an ordinary coaster. It actually has where you can insert your photo, like a photo into it. We used magnets inside of acrylic that was so that you could easily swap out the photo inside. And then we applied little rubber feet so your coaster stays in place. And then here in the slide, you can see that the coaster, the placeholder that we put in it, featured our recipient's initial. We variably matched that to the box because the front of the package also featured our customer's first name. And then since this piece ran digitally, this is a good point to note. We knew we wanted to run digital on this box, so the box was specifically designed to fit a digital sheet size. So there were some adjustments that had to happen in the mock-up form process, but we knew ahead of time that's what we wanted to do, so we designed to that. And since it did run digitally, we printed the mail panel right on the box. This saved some time and eliminated the need for a label. I'd also like to note that the package was designed so that it needed 0 adhesive. There's no tape here. The pockets just fold closed, and then we use tabs to keep the lid closed. This eliminated hours of hand assembly time, which helped cut down on some costs. This was also the first year we printed multiple versions. One version was a message that thanked our current customers for their business. One went out to prospects and invited them to have a cup of hot cocoa with us. And then finally, a version was made to give to our employees to say thank you for an amazing year. And if all that wasn't enough, the artwork on this box was actually hand lettered using real cocoa powder and then photographed.
I have to say it was really cool to see this in process, this whole process, and I know that I believe Amy tried several different types of cocoa. You did try hot chocolate,
yep.
But it ended up being just regular cocoa powder. But then she also tried chocolate shavings and really tried to incorporate all of that into the final art. And I believe you even went outside.
Yeah, to further the fall theme, I went outside and picked colorful leaves off of the ground to incorporate into the final artwork.
So through that process, we were able to capture it using a time-lapse camera, which was really cool because then we could feature it on our landing page as an added bonus from the call to action for people to see how it was incorporated into the final package. And we also used that on our Facebook page. Another social tie-in that we had was using a hashtag, #MyWarmMemory. And if the recipient used it, the post would give them an additional donation in their name.
Yeah, this is the first time in a holiday card we made a specific hashtag for that campaign in hopes to get people to post about it.
Yeah, and kind of expand the message. We'll include a link to the video in the download version of the slides because you definitely need to see the video. The cards shown today received a 25 to 55% response rate, which is higher than the industry average, which is only 18%. And that is specific for mailings to your own list. That percentage is a lot lower for mailings to a purchased list.
All right, thanks Christine and Amy for that informative presentation. We're now going to open it up for questions. If you have a question for our speakers, please type it into the questions box in your GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen. I know we covered a lot. While everyone is submitting questions, I wanted to remind you that this webinar has been sponsored by Suttle-Straus. If you're looking for a trusted partner to help guide you through your next print or mailing project, please consider us and request a quote at Suttle-Straus.com. All right, so let's talk about these response rates. How are you measuring a response since it's a holiday card?
So, for example, the extreme roll fold version that we talked about earlier, the Seasons of Giving. So the response rate on that was really calculated because we sent out 860 cards and we received 464 responses to the landing page, which was the call to action to select their charity. So that leaves us with a 53% response rate. And that's not only using the card to achieve those responses, but also through emails to non-responders.
Yeah. She covered it right there. That's what we consider a response rate, just who goes in and fills out a form to donate to charity. Your response rate might vary whether you want people to reach out and contact you or simply just go online like your Facebook page.
Yeah, through some we were able to see a high response rate as well as when we directed them to the social media page to follow up with maybe what the card meant to them, what the charity meant to them. We saw a lot of responses there, which was really touching as a company to see how our partnership is, with these clients. So
you can also measure individual elements, like you said, that one video had a certain number of views and a certain number of likes or engagements, so that you can measure too. It's certainly easy to get more responses when you're asking someone to donate someone else's money than their own, but
yeah,
that probably helped with our...
Yeah, and Megan kind of touched on it earlier. You might not always want your holiday card to be about response rate, but there's no reason why you can't make it work for you as well as just say thank you. There's ways we hope you could see in our examples that there are ways to do that without being too salesy in their face around the holiday season.
Yeah, you don't want to be overly promotional, but you are spending money on this as a marketing piece, so let's make sure we get something out of it.
Yeah.
As far as people coming to you guys as a creative design team, what do they need to bring? I mean, do you need a full-blown concept, or can you start from scratch?
Well, I'll start with that. We actually love working with clients and anybody really to just talk through and brainstorm ideas. So even if we're not the ones finally executing the design, we are always open to meeting and just brainstorming ideas or what form it could take. And so with that, if you do want us to go through with design, you can really come to us at any stage, and we're open to seeing where we need to be with everything and what steps are next and necessary.
If you're not going to go through an outside creative source, you're going to work on the creative yourself. Again, I just recommend that you reach out to your print provider ahead of time, because if you bring them a full-blown concept with design and your design line and everything, and then they turn around and tell you, actually, we can't do that, it's going to set you back. So whether we design it for you or not, just really reach out and talk to them ahead of time.
And we got a question from Joe asking if some of these ideas can be reused for others.
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of die lines that you see here, we've actually had a couple clients contact us and say, hey, can we use that same die, which really saved them a lot of cost for a new die order and time, because they don't have to wait for it, as well as they used a house paper, so they were able to save costs there. So for sure.
We're fine with you stealing our ideas if you want to do a sustainable snowman or a snowflake or a turkey.
We're here to inspire, right?
It may have been a medium-high budget item for us, but that will make it lower for you if you reuse our stuff and just put your own spin on it.
Or like Amy touched on, is that one may have been increased because of paper. So there's a lot of elements that can kind of help that drive that cost. So there's a lot of cost savings that you can make through existing dies or paper.
Well, and if you use an existing die, you know that it is tried and true and that it's going to function, because we've already done that. So you're removing some R&D in there as well, which can increase your turnaround time.
And it's not likely our customer list probably cross over if you're in a completely different industry, so this will be something they've never seen before.
And some of these are older ideas, so to repurpose it and change it up, you know, that works.
Make it fresh.
Yeah.
All right, so if you're looking for more examples like the ones we just showed you, I suggest checking out our social media pages, specifically Pinterest. We are always posting our most recent creative jobs, and it's a great resource if you're just looking for ideas to spark your next holiday card.
And that's all the time we have for today. If you have more questions you didn't have a chance to ask, or you want to follow up about a specific piece, you can email me at marketing@Suttle-Straus.com and I can get back to you. Everyone should watch their email tomorrow for a link to the recorded presentation and a PDF of the slides with all the details in there. Thanks everyone for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.